What's up, everybody? Just want to take a quick second and let people know that I am self-supported. I now put all of my episodes on Substack for paid subscribers. I put them up early, and then 24 hours later, I release them to the public on all my platforms. I also have Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, Zelle, a P.O. Box, and Locals, Patreon. And all of these, all of the links are in the show notes of every single episode I put out. So look forward to continuing to, provide great conversations. And thank you all for your continued support. I know we're going to do a movie one at the end of December because that's going to be my new thing. I'm going forward for all my regulars that are interested doing movies. But, we were talking just before, and screw it, let's talk about a movie for a second. We're talking about The Hustler. And I was referencing some interviews that I've done where they just don't give you much. And it reminded me of the movie The Hustler in the very beginning when Paul Newman, remember he broke 9-ball and he totally soft it, soft, so like it barely broke. And he looked at Jackie Gleason and he's like, didn't leave you much. And Jackie Gleason, who plays Minnesota Fats, looks, he just analyzes and he's like, you left enough. He just runs the table.
Yeah, everybody knows Paul Newman's a great actor, right? Cool Hand Luke. But Jackie Gleason doesn't get enough credit. People just think of him as like Smokey and the Bandit or the Jackie Gleason Show. He's actually a super great actor. Super great actor.
His last movie, and then we'll move on to the current events. His last movie is, I'd probably say, one of my top 15, top 20 movies. It was called Nothing in Common, where he plays Tom Hanks' father. And they have no relationship, and he ends up getting cancer and asks Tom Hanks to come back into his life. And it's really good. And he died, I think, shortly after that movie came out in 1986.
I don't think I saw that.
It's before Tom Hanks became Tom Hanks.
My father, when we had the black and white TV show in the probably the 60s, two of the things that were like must watches, the Johnny Cash show and the Jackie Gleason show. And if you ever watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I know you have,
because we've talked about it,
a couple times Brad Pitt says, like after he gets the laced cigarette at the very end, says, and away we go. That was a Jackie Gleason signature on the Jackie Gleason show because, like a Dean Martin, I mean, you think about how we look at those days, they were so straight-laced. Dean Martin show and Jackie Gleason show, the guys walk out with like a martini, okay? And it's like in a big martini glass. So it's like obviously not iced tea, And Jackie Gleason is like spotlight, a high chair, like a bar chair, and he's got a cigarette and a highball or a martini, and he'd say, and away we go. A little thin mustache. They were pretty cool. I mean, look, I'm showing my age, but what the hell?
Wasn't he smoking? Yeah. Wasn't it 7 packs a day or something, or 10 packs a day? I think he smoked.
I could believe it. But for the Jackie Gleason was great, and the Smokey and the Bandit, everything. He was always great.
I love the Smokey and the Bandit. The last one is The Toy. I mean, I grew up as a kid watching The Toy, which I guess was at the end of Richard Pryor's career, where he was kind of selling out and taking whatever role. But I don't know. When I was 6 years old, that movie was pretty good.
Sure. Got to do what you got to do. You got to pay the bills.
So where we're going to start today, right? We got Venezuela, we got Russia, we got economy, precious metals. This episode is brought to you by McIlvaney Financial Group. Their advisors bring a depth of knowledge and experience that allow them to serve their clientele with care, ensuring their financial needs are met now and in the future. Personally, I'm not saying cash is worthless, but you can see what's happening. It's worth less every year. Gold is the opposite. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to www.mcilvaney.com/coffeeandamike. Pick a category. Let's do like Jeopardy today, Matt. Pick a category.
Yeah, everything coming together. And what we'll come back to is, we can talk about Russia, Ukraine. We can talk about Venezuela and the drug boat double tap. We can talk about Palantir and the stock market. But I think in the end, everything is circling back. If you drive the focus through all of these vectors, it all comes back to we're at the end of a debt cycle, and there's no way out of it. There's no magic trick that is somebody's going to come up with some genius idea to have a new financial system where we just all cruise through, and everybody pays their mortgage, everybody can pay their car payments, and there's no disruption, and life goes on as normal. Stores are full of food. They're just going to have to play a big presto switcheroo. Somewhere there's going to be a big presto switcheroo. It's like we're watching, the train heading for the bridge that was just blown up. The bridge isn't there. Train's going full speed, Amtrak, we're all on it. Nobody's worried because somebody somewhere has told us there's a plan to have like a new bridge there by the time the train gets there. All right. I don't see it. So I'm happy to talk about the near term things that, are obviously real in their own right. They're all real, but none of them are going to get us around the fact that the bridge has already been blown up ahead, which is there's no way out of this debt trap. And everybody is closing in on us. All of these factors are closing in. This is why Europe is apparently going, the leaders of Europe, elected and unelected, and their elections are kind of a joke. They're like gearing up for war with Russia. They have no armies. They have no militaries. They're gearing up for war with Russia. It can only be because they want to knock over the poker table, chips go flying, the lights go out, shots ring out, and at the end of the day, they're hoping to skate through and be able to say, don't blame me for the crisis in Europe. It was out of our hand. It was an act of God, force majeure. We're just in a new world, and we'll have to figure out how to feed the people, but don't blame us. Well, we should blame them. The people that have led us to this point, it's been mathematically certain for a generation that we'd end up here. And they don't want to be blamed in the sense that, when all this spins out of control, that we point the blame right at Washington and New York and London, City of London, that they're going to try to say, it wasn't us, it was the Russians, right? It was the Russians. They caused it. Well, that's why we're like doing everything we can to provoke Russia into doing some action against Europe, like now sinking Russian or quote unquote shadow fleet oil tankers or attacking them with drones, when everybody, with a sixth grade education knows it's Americans and British behind all of this. The Ukrainians are just the guy that pushes the button on the HIMARS when it's an American, AWACS plane, American Predators, Global Hawks, satellites, Starlink, American HIMARS, everything about the missiles going into Russia is American or British or German, except for some Ukrainian major that is told, okay, major, push the button. Now it's a Ukrainian missile. Nobody is fooled by this. Now we've got a fleet assembled off of Venezuela, and every day there's more stories, more reasons why we're going to have to go to war with Venezuela. And I'm not sure what the real reason is. I'm hearing all of these things. Oh, it's the drug boats. Okay, I have no problem with blowing up drug boats. I never did, never would. But it's okay. Venezuela is the root of all of the Dominion voting machines. Somehow they come from, the chips come from China. They go through Taiwan. They wind up in of all places, Venezuela. That's the Patrick Byrne story. And he's, I love Alex Jones, and Alex Jones has him on all the time. Patrick Byrne is a intel asset, admittedly. So I don't know what story he's peddling. I can't sort out in this wilderness of mirrors what's true and what's a narrative, a narrative to get us to go to war. It's the drugs, it's the Cubans in Venezuela, it's the voting machines. So we're about to go to war in Venezuela. We've given Maduro a week notice that he's got to clear out, and now he's like marching around saying, "Screw you, gringo, we're not leaving." I mean, it seems like this December could be very historic. We're ending a year, going into 2026. The stock market is basically being propped up by the Magnificent Seven, completely artificial construct. I don't know, what leg is going to get pulled out from the stool, but I don't think this is going on for a whole lot longer.
Well,
And I think we're just being set up for narratives to explain why all the shit hit the fan. Don't blame us; it was somebody else.
well, you listened to my conversation with Sam Faddis, and
Yes.
I asked him some questions in relation to Venezuela because, again, I'm no expert. I'm not an expert in any of this stuff. That's why I have people on. So people that write nasty comments to me that I don't know anything, yeah, I admit it. I don't know anything. That's why I started all this, was to learn. But in relation to drug boats, I just find that hard to believe because you can freeze up these people's money. These are billions of dollars. These are
Now,
not.
the drug boats are important. The
No,
drug
no,
boats
hold
are
on,
important.
hold on, let me finish. These are cartels. These are not whatever these groups are called in Venezuela. Billions of dollars. If you freeze their money, they can't do anything. And these
A
money are
lot
in
of the
banks.
money, a lot of the money is cash both ways. A lot of this money is not electronic.
Billions of dollars.
The Did you ever see the pallets of cash we sent to Iran and that we sent into Afghanistan? Pallets of $100 bills, pallets. So a lot of this is cash in both directions. They smuggle the drugs into America, and then they smuggle they smuggle the cash out. So it's not all electronic that you can somehow intercept. But the drug boats themselves, I've got no problem with that. We don't need aircraft carriers to do that. You could accomplish that mission with a 10% smaller, a 10% of that footprint, without carrier battle groups and 10,000 troops in Panama and Puerto Rico ready to go. Now, I will say, and I support Trump 100% in this, and Pete Hegseth. For the last 40 years, we've played a game of Keystone Cops in the drug war. And what I mean by that is whether they're using semi-submersibles or go-fasts or fake fishing trawlers, long-range boats, or even sailboats, we had to cover the Caribbean and the Pacific with the Coast Guard in little cutters that have a very limited span of the view. It's not like they've got the NSA talking to them hour by hour, giving them a complete picture of every little boat in the Pacific or the Caribbean. No way. So we'd have to find a go fast in operation that happened to be seen by a Coast Guard cutter's radar or their airborne helicopter. Their helicopter chases after it, fires some 50 caliber rounds from a Barrett, in the side of the helicopter, in the water in front of the boat. If they don't stop, try to disable the boat without hurting anybody by firing into the engine. If you can stop the boat, now the Coast Guard cutter can circle, can get into range to launch a rubber boat. So you can go out and essentially on the middle of the high seas, read the rights, give the Miranda warning to the smugglers and put them on the Coast Guard cutter, which is, steaming into range. The Coast Guard cutter takes them to Miami or San Diego, where they bond out in 24 hours and they disappear into America. So this has been like a joke for 40 years. The war on drugs has been a total joke. The guys running these drug boats, whether it's a trawler or a go fast, whatever it is, they could care less. If they make the mission, they get paid, they go home. If they get arrested by the Coast Guard, they go to Miami or San Diego, they're into America. They're gone, right? The Lawyers Guild and the ACLU springs them out. Liberal judges spring them out. They're in America. They could care less. If they do a year or two, they could care less. They're back home. What we're doing now is actually hitting the boats. And this cuts right into the financial chain. People say, Matt, these go fast. They can't make it from there to America. Of course not. It's a chain. So if you can cut one link of the chain every time, the first link, the whole chain falls because they're not getting to the next spot where they transit or transfer to another modality, an airplane, another boat. You're chopping the chain right there at Venezuela. So this is important and it's significant. I've got no problem with the double tap. The whole thing about the double tap is a misallocation of the land rules of war, where if you're on the land and you're Americans going into Germany or Russians going into Ukraine, and you take a position and you've shot some of the enemy and some of them are wounded, but you're now taking those trenches, you're not supposed to shoot that guy that's now laying there with his hands up surrendering. You're supposed to, give him tourniquets and bandages and send him back to the rear as a POW. Give him medical care. But if it's an enemy armored personnel carrier and you're attacking it from the sky, there's never in Iraq, Afghanistan, the Russian Donbass, there's never a situation where it's like, oh, we hit the APC. Those guys are now running into the tree line, but we can't touch them because their APC's disabled. That's bullshit. If the drug boat is still floating, you hit it till it's gone to smithereens, right? If those barrels are still floating around, they'll be picked up. So I've got no problem with that. The problem I have is Trump being played into going kinetic inside of Venezuela, probably Mexico too, very soon. And I get all the arguments. I hear all the arguments. The cartel, like Steve Miller said, the cartels own the entire American border, not the Mexican government. I get it. And in moral terms, I've got no problems with airstrikes against cartels, Predator drone hellfire attacks. But we have to understand that they have a lot of power inside of America. And it's not going to be like we're attacking, ISIS in Iraq on the other side of the planet. These guys have suborned congressmen, judges, all kinds of politicians, businessmen. They have safe houses. They have networks across America. And when we kinetically go after these cartels, especially in Mexico, very hard, they're going to retaliate in America. They're going to be kidnapping families, like Stephen Miller said. They're going to be going the full cartel. So we have to know what we're in for in this kind of a war. And I just made this, I made this today. I don't have like a high-tech thing here going on. Can you see that all right?
It's very high-tech. It's so high-tech. Is that AI?
Yeah. That's Venezuela. Okay?
Did you hear what I said, Matt?
Yeah, AI with my fingers. So this is South Vietnam, okay? This is Venezuela. Venezuela is 5 times bigger than South Vietnam. We had 500,000 American troops there, and like over 40,000 were killed over more than a decade. We tried to stop the Chinese and Russians from resupplying South Vietnam by coming in through third countries. We had B-52 bombers doing these things called arc-light missions, which just turned hundreds of miles of Vietnam into the craters of the moon. It's just still today, like giant ponds made by B-52 strikes. And we never stopped Russia and China from resupplying the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese army inside of South Vietnam. South Vietnam is only 1/5 the size of Venezuela. There are bigger jungles and bigger mountains in Venezuela. Venezuela has 5,000 kilometers of land border with Colombia, Brazil, and Guyana. This is important because the current governments in Brazil and Colombia support Maduro. That means that if we do some lightning strike, which would be great, and we capture Maduro like a Black Hawk Down that goes right, and we We capture the boss man and we take him out. And the all of the Venezuelan militias and military, they surrender, they wave the white flag. This would be absolutely fantastic. We march into Caracas and everybody's waving American flags and Venezuelan flags. But they said that they were going to do that in Iraq, and it didn't happen exactly. All of these invasions we do, they say the people are just waiting for freedom. All we've got to do is show up and we're going to be welcomed. But remember, Venezuela has almost double the population of South Vietnam when we were there. 500,000 troops in that much smaller country than Venezuela. We won't be able to overfly Colombia or Brazil. They will not allow it. So we're going to have to send Rangers and SEALs and Green Berets to these borders that are like 800 kilometers from the Caribbean, right, against modern anti-aircraft guns, to insert our troops in to try to control 5,000 kilometers of border, little jungle rivers that are covered with, triple canopy at the top, 1,000 little streams that motorboats can go take troops, take supplies and guerrillas in and out. People have no idea this is 5 times bigger than Vietnam with a much bigger population. And people will say, but Matt, you're too pessimistic. As soon as we show up, we'll do a couple, Delta strikes, some SEALs will go in, some Rangers, some Marines, and it's going to be great because they love us. And all we got to do is show up. But to me, the risk is it's going to be a Black Hawk Down situation or worse. It can be. I'm not saying it will be. And if this Venezuela operation, now that, we've told Maduro, you have a week and the week is over, right? He's still there saying, screw you, gringo. Then what? Do we back down? We've got an aircraft carrier battle group there. It's burning tens of millions of dollars a day just to be there with all of its escorts. We've got thousands of troops in Puerto Rico and Panama and elsewhere that are poised for some kind of kinetic action. It's coming up to Christmas. We're now in an era where soldiers and sailors are normally FaceTiming with their wife and their parents every day. They're doing homework with their kids, right, on FaceTime. And to keep the security, you're going to have to shut these down, which if and when they do this, it's a big signal. Oh, the fleet's just gone dark. The bases in Puerto Rico and Panama have just gone dark. What's that mean? We're coming into the Christmas season. Everybody should not think that all of these sailors and soldiers love Donald Trump. This thing with the seditious six is a real thing, okay? They're not just like talking to a couple crazy communist traitors, deeply buried inside the military. The military has a lot of people that came in under Obama, for example. They are DEI hires. They are woke hires. They do not love Trump. They are waiting for a chance to say this is an illegal order and then leak something to the Washington Post, that we just did something that I'm going to refuse. I'm going to have my mutiny on the bounty moment and I'm going to say, Captain, I refuse that order. There are people in the military like this. It's not 100% we love Trump. There are plenty of these sleepers in there. And that's what the whole purpose of this seditious six thing has been, is to encourage them, to say, we'll support you. The media will support you. If you say something is being done that's against the rules of law, we'll back you up all the way. If you refuse an order, you'll have lawyers. You won't have to worry about it. So this is a very tenuous situation. If we think that we're just going to go in there with a Delta and SEAL Team 6 and grab Maduro and everybody's going to be throwing roses at us, I hope that happens. But if Maduro has a plan to get away, and remember, it's not just Maduro's planning, and at this part of the Sam Faddis interview, absolutely right. There's a synergy, there's a symbiotic relationship between Cuba and Venezuela.
Did you know that?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know.
So
I didn't know Cuba had any sort of power anymore.
totally. Well, here's the thing. At the fall of the Soviet Union, Cuba was the Soviet client. Russian ships, ported there, submarines, shore leave. It was like for Russians, it was a great tropical holiday, go to Cuba, right? This is like through the 80s. So the Cubans were supported by the Russians. The Russians brought in oil. The Russians exported oil to them. Remember, we've got the sanctions on them. You can't run any kind of an economy without oil. I mean, if you've got a destitute communist economy that's making no currency, right, that is not has no balance of trade anywhere, somebody's got to be bringing the oil tankers in. That was Russia. Okay, so the Soviet Union collapses, and that lifeline is cut off. Well, what happened? This is transferring at the same time with Cesar Chavez. So the in the 80s, this is as the Soviet Union support is depleting and then completely falling away, Cuba would have withered on the vine. Cuba would have had, like, we're out of oil. We can't run a bus. We can't run a tractor. Nothing, because we can't buy it. We have no money. Russia was just sending tankers here to support us as a communist outpost in American Caribbean. But that was the rise of Cesar Chavez. Now, a few areas, Cuba has always punched way above its weight, as they say. Even in like a North Korea or a Cuba, you can have a hardcore of fanatics that are going to support the regime because, for a couple of reasons, they may be actual confirmed communists, but they may just be part of the nomenclatura class where they know that if, like, the regime falls, they fall with it. Like, you're Ceausescu's private army in Romania. If Ceausescu goes, you're going down too. So you're going to support, El Capo, El Caudillo. You're going to support him because he goes down, you go down. So the Cubans have always had a really good intelligence service that has, as Sam Faddis even said, run rings around the CIA. They have such deep infiltration into the United States. There are probably 20 or 30 congressmen and senators, Democrats mostly, who don't even know that they're stooges for Cuban spies. Like Swalwell with the Chinese Fang Fang, okay? There are much prettier Cuban spy chicks going back for decades and decades that they've been infiltrated into an American Cuban American economy or a Cuban American society culture, but they are Cuban spies 100%, and they are trained to seduce and all the things that Swalwell did with the Chinese spy, but much better, especially when you've got an Hispanic American community, a Cuban American community. It gives them an entire ecosystem to thrive inside of. And you've got a lot of Hispanic, especially Democrats. They don't want, they're left leaning. They don't want to hear about how terrible Cuba is. You can't tell them, look, we got to give you a briefing on these, you're going to these parties. These are like totally infiltrated by Cubans. It's like, don't tell me that, you right wingers. You supported all of the Pinochets and all of them. I have some Cuban friends. Screw you. Yeah, these guys are totally infiltrating at every level in our Congress business community. The Cuban spies have been super, super effective. They also, going back to when they were supporting the Soviet Union in Africa, in Ethiopia, Angola, Mozambique, they've had a very good, strong tradition of special forces troops. And as Sam Faddis and others said, Maduro's Praetorian Guard is not even Venezuelan. Maduro's Praetorian Guard is Cuban. They're Cuban special forces. So Maduro, remember, you know what Maduro was before he was like the new boss of Venezuela? You know what his actual job was? He was a bus driver. Okay. Maduro's a bus driver. That's his career path. Bus driver, dictator of Venezuela. So it's the Cubans that are surrounding him. So Cuba can't exist without Venezuela's oil. So Venezuela does have a limited refining capability. Cuba has very little, almost none, but it's a short drive from Venezuela to Cuba. So, so Venezuela has literally been Cuba's, IV drip in the arm. If Venezuela goes down, as Sam Faddis correctly said, if Venezuela goes down, meaning Maduro's regime is gone, the Americans are coming in, Cuba won't last a year because they won't have the backing of like Soviet oil from like 40 years ago, and they won't have the backing of Venezuelan oil. You cannot have a modern society on zero oil, zero balance of trade to buy anything. So you can't just look at Venezuela as Venezuela. It's Venezuela plus Cuban, the quote unquote barefoot doctors. So a lot of what the existing health infrastructure in Venezuela is the Cubans, which also is like a huge area for you know double play where you have so-called doctors that are also intel agents, but you've got the special forces, the intel, the Venezuelan intelligence service is indistinguishable from the Cubans. And you've also got the Russians in there and the Chinese providing, economic support. But the support that the Russians are going to provide is in their knowledge of how to entrap Uncle Sam. The Russians are great chess players. They're in their living memory of active duty military officers. They can remember Afghanistan in the 80s when we supported Osama bin Laden. That's when we sent Rambo 3 right into, here goes Sylvester Stallone with the brave Mujahideen killing the evil commies in Afghanistan. They don't forget that. Then everything flipped, and then we were in Afghanistan fighting the evil Mujahideen. But the Russians remember that. We supplied the Stinger missiles and other Red Eye and then Stinger missiles to shoot down Russian helicopters in Afghanistan. They haven't forgotten that. They certainly are aware that the missiles we're firing into Russia to hit refineries and the sea drones that are hitting their ships, it's 100% British American, 100%. The only Ukrainian involved is the stooge that pushes the button when he's told to push the button. It's 100% American. So if the Russians can draw us into the briar patch, the tar pit, remember, 5 times bigger than Vietnam, I don't think that the Russians are going to fire missiles. People talk about like, oh, they have hypersonics. Maybe they'll hit our aircraft carrier with a hypersonic. I don't think they're going to do that at all. But I think that they would love it if we have a nice Black Hawk Down. If we send some fighters over Venezuela, they're shot down, and now we've got American pilots on television saying, my name is John Smith, and I'm a captive of the Venezuelan people today. Then what are we going to do when we've got POWs? Or if we try to do some kind of a fast surgical op, like we're gonna send the Rangers to seize an airfield so that the C-17s can come in and C-130s can come in full of Marines. What if one of these aircraft is shot down full of paratroopers or people ready to land at an airport that's not quite secure? We could easily have dozens, hundreds of casualties in Venezuela. All of the regular suspects on Fox News, General Jack Keane and these morons, they'll be saying, we now are at war with Venezuela. And then in 6 months, you've got Marine divisions, 82nd Airborne's in there in 2 weeks. I mean, I like a lot of Trump's spirit, but his idea of bluffing and giving ultimatums in a war strategy situation is really stupid. It might be a great thing for a Queens, New York builder to like threaten and make ultimatums. If you don't sign this contract in 2 weeks, I'm walking away. That might have worked great for Trump. But when you do that on the world stage level and you say, Maduro, you've got 1 week to surrender, or we're coming in hard and kinetic. Well, Maduro's on television basically giving the finger to the big gringo imperialist. And I'm not saying that if you took a vote in Venezuela, Maduro would win a fair vote. Not at all. But if you look in the greater context of the millions of people in Brazil, Colombia, and Venezuela, there are millions that are leftists. And one thing that will rally them is the specter of the big gringo Yankee imperialist once again interfering in the Caribbean, thinking that their Marines can like sort everything out and solve all the problems by force. Even if most of the Venezuelans would welcome it, it's not going to be a cakewalk. In 1989, December 1989, so it's what, 15, 16 years ago? No, what's that? 90 to, oh, it's
No,
a long
30,
time
30,
ago.
30,
89.
36 years ago.
Yeah, 36 years ago. So we went into Panama. Panama used to be one, like the lost province of Colombia, of Colombia. I mean, Panama compared to Venezuela is like Rhode Island compared to California. And we still took casualties. You know, the dictator president of Panama at the time, he was not popular, but he did have a military that was not just going to put up a white flag when they heard Americans were coming. You're going to still have firefights. You can still have airplanes shot down. Venezuela is no Panama. So compared to Venezuela, you're like talking about Grenada. Venezuela is 5 times bigger than South Vietnam with a much bigger population. And it doesn't matter if most of the Venezuelans would support Maduro leaving. If Maduro is not captured, if we do a snatch operation, remember Black Hawk Down, what was the point of that? We're going to snatch the warlord, right? And his top warlord lieutenants. We're going to send Delta onto the roof. It's going to be a great op. Rangers will secure the blocks around there. The little birds are going to fast rope people on the roof. We're going to grab Aidid and his lieutenants, and we're going to be out of Somalia. It's going to be so awesome, right? Well, it didn't work. Everybody has seen that movie 5 times. It would be very possible that if we do something kinetic in Venezuela, like sending in Rangers, parachuting in to secure an airport so that the C-17s and C-130s can land with more troops, that one of those planes can get hit by a missile. We're not talking about Panama in 1989 now. We're talking about a country with modern Russian anti-aircraft missiles. So it's not going to be simple or easy. And meanwhile the taxis count is spinning. Every day with a carrier battle group is just millions and millions of dollars because all of the ships supporting the carrier's a nuke, but all of the ships are not. They're burning oil. They're not at the dock. They're burning oil. All those troops are getting frustrated. I was supposed to be home on leave. I missed Thanksgiving. I'm going to miss Christmas. What's this all about? Don't think that every troop, every sailor on those ships is like 100% MAGA till the end. They're not. There are plenty of Obama DEI, era hires that hate Trump and would love to have the mission fail. You can't even rule out things like sabotage.
Plus, too, though, Matt, you're going to have people that just aren't buying into this. I mean, I can tell you, I'm not buying into this. I don't know how this benefits me, a regular American in Arizona, and this is a big if. I mean, there's a lot of talk, and then it never comes with fruition. But if it does, how do everyday Americans benefit from this?
Well, they're not, number one, they're not selling it very effectively. They're getting a little bit better at messaging on the drug boats. But a regular now on InfoWars and other places, and the guy's very compelling and very convincing. David Byrne looks like, I think it's spelled like the Talking Heads Byrne, Byrne or something.
Great band, by the way.
Patrick Byrne. Life in Wartime.
Life During Wartime. Was it during war?
Life During Wartime, yeah. Yeah, better stay away from the window. Anyway,
This ain't no
yeah,
disco.
I've changed.
This ain't
I
no
changed my
disco.
hair.
This ain't
I
no
changed my
disco. This
hairstyle
ain't
so many times I don't know who I am. Right?
this ain't no disco. This ain't no fooling around.
Exactly. It's classic. So, but Patrick Byrne is
Wait, well, can I interrupt you one more time? This one,
yeah.
MTV, the videos were worth it. That was like in the 80s because they had the
It's
best
fantastic.
friggin' videos. Talking Heads.
Talking Heads. You bet. Oh, all the way, man.
Sorry.
Anyway, but Patrick Byrne, he's putting out the narrative, and he's, admittedly intel somewhere along, he's not like an uninvolved third party. He's like involved in this. Okay. So maybe there's like a civil war within the CIA or the intelligence community. I don't know. But he's saying that Venezuela and others, not just him, but he's like the main spokesman. And Alex Jones is 100% on board with all this, that Venezuela, maybe they're right. Okay. I mean, I'm not saying that they're making this up. Venezuela, and when I say Venezuela, that means Cuba also, which we know punches way above its weight in intelligence operations. Okay. They wouldn't have survived this long if the Cuban, was it DRG, if they weren't extremely efficient. So he's saying that Venezuela is the fountainhead of the Dominion voting machine fraud. And we know the Democrats, they commit fraud in a dozen ways, stuffing ballot boxes in every other way. But the Dominion voting machines, they can literally flip the votes. The chips are made in communist China. They're laundered through Taiwan. They wind up in machines that are made in Serbia and God knows where. And then somehow these Dominion voting machines are in 72 countries around the world. When they need to flip an election, it's not like they've got to have, a voting machine in all 1,000 counties of America. You can do an analysis, and with modern computing, AI, et cetera, it's much simpler. What are the 5 key swing states, right? What are the 10 counties in those 5 swing states where if you just push in 20,000 votes, you can flip them, win that state, win those 5 swing states, win the presidency, right? And so Byrne and others are making the case that Venezuela is the fountainhead of all of this, that those those clever, sneaky Cubans and Venezuelans, have been manipulating voting machines, laundering them through Canada and other places to make them appear like, oh, these are just high class, wonderful, world's best tier 1 voting machines. Everybody should use them. And to the Democrats, it's like, wink, wink, we know what you mean. You can work it for us. And the Republicans are like, what? Who knows? The Republicans are always a day late and a dollar short. They never, they're fighting
worthless.
the battle from 3 elections ago. They never have a clue.
They're worthless. They're a worthless party. I'll say
worthless.
They are
worthless.
And it's even more apparent now. I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off.
But
if
Venezuela is the fountainhead of the vote rigging, they need to make that case. Bondi and Patel and Bongino, all these people should be out there saying, Venezuela, look, we have all the proof. All of these guys that have been doing the hard work in the trenches on the internet, throw them a bone. Send some Department of Justice guys to sit down and confirm their information so you can have a press conference and say, that's why we got to take out Maduro. You can't just lay it all in the drug boats and say fentanyl, which the fentanyl is coming from China as precursor materials in barrels going all over the place, mainly to Mexico. But so you can't just say it's because of a drug war we're going to invade Venezuela. Now, if they are actually running cartels in America that own politicians, that have politicians either suborned or blackmailed or under extortion, right? You vote our way, your kid who lives in Mexico, her head's going to be in the mail to you in a FedEx package tomorrow, right? That is going on. But make the case. You can't make the case after you start the war. It's too late. You got to make the case before you start the war. If we're sending the Rangers to take an airport in Caracas, Americans should be like, go, let's do it. Don't try to make the case after America's turned against a big Black Hawk Down. Once again, the Republicans will be a day late and a dollar short. It's like their chosen track. Let's discover about the vote rigging from 2 elections ago. Who cares? Let's talk about the next vote rigging and how to stop it. And if that's Venezuela, great. Tell us. Bongino, Patel, Bondi, sit down with these internet sleuths. Go through their data. If Patrick Byrne is legit, let's find out. Interview these witnesses that according to Alex Jones and Patrick Byrne, they've had to like flee around the world. These Venezuelan, subject matter experts are like living in secret, sneaking in and out of countries because they'll be assassinated. Well, where's our DOJ? Don't we have an FBI and a witness protection program? If we're going to go to war with Venezuela, and the real reason is the vote rigging machines, and remember, Cuba, Venezuela is one organism. Make the case now. Don't have like a ship blown up with a missile and then 3 years later say, but you know why we did it? Because they were rigging votes. Nobody will care. It'll be a done deal. Democrats will be in Congress. They'll have the Senate, the House, and the presidency by then. If you F this up now.
I think they're going to.
If we're going to go to war with Venezuela, make the case.
The GOP is worthless. You're into it. They are worthless.
Just remember. You see that? Is that showing up?
Yeah. Let me.
5 times South Vietnam. We had 500,000 troops in there at one time in 1968. We lost 40,000. Millions of Vietnamese were killed. I mean, it was not the high point of America's glory days for the military.
Well, and also, two things. One, David Byrne was the lead singer of Talking Heads. I don't know if we said that earlier, but everybody was correcting us from the Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis was related to Jimmy Swaggart, you and Kunstler. But
that's right. That's right.
It's so funny how people in the comments were. It's just hilarious how it's like just a conversation. Are you going to get some of this wrong? David Byrne was the lead singer of Talking Heads.
And he's not related to Patrick Byrne.
He's not related to Patrick Byrne. But
and Patrick Byrne is probably right. But why isn't Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel conferencing with him, interviewing these Venezuelan defectors, going on television with the president, making the case for why we have to cut the head off this snake in Venezuela. And if we cut the head off the snake in Venezuela, then Cuba falls, which obviously Rubio, that's his gig, then Cuba will fall. But if we just are talking about drug boats and Maduro, you got to leave or else, and the next thing you know, a C-130 with 100 Rangers on it is blown out of the sky, the guys in their parachutes crash into the jungle, some of them maybe are taken prisoner. Can you imagine what a S-storm that's going to be? That'll be the end of Trump. It'll be the end right there. Bay of Pigs times 10.
I made the call last summer, or this past summer, and I got so much shit for it. But I said when he bombed Iran, that was the end of his presidency. And I don't think I was wrong on that. I think people are really, really tired.
Well, these special elections, if the special elections are a bellwether, we're going to get totally hosed in the midterms.
We're going to get destroyed.
We're going to lose the Senate and the House.
I have to tell you, and again, I'm probably going to get some heat for this. I don't really care because they've shown me nothing. Nothing.
Well, look. I go back to my worn out analogy. Do you want to have drunk Denzel Washington flying the airplane, or the guy that is trying to steer it into a mountain?
But here's the thing, though. I don't think it matters. I think we're going to end up in the same result at this point. It's just going to be a different path to get there. But
part of it is sort of like who gets the blame for when the stock market crashes. When the stock market crashes, it won't be like 1929 where people would get in, soup and bread lines and line up, for 5 blocks, in about 2 hours, I'll get my bowl of soup. If that kind of thing happens today, supermarkets are going to be looted. It'll be Molotov cocktails from, the right off the bat.
Well, here,
but a lot of it has to do with who will be blamed when the stock market crashes. Whoever the president is, even if he like took office 2 weeks before the stock market crash, he's Hoover. So part of it is like, who do you want to be nominally in charge of the Titanic when it sinks?
But the other thing,
If
though,
it's a Republican, when the Titanic sinks, the Republicans are blamed.
but the other thing though too with that, I could see a scenario where, and you listen to this conversation, the Matt Smith with Leonard Goodman and Patrick Sullivan from Integrity Media. Patrick, I'm getting his last name wrong, from Integrity Media. I keep coming back to that when he was talking about the global monetary reset. And I think about like universal basic income, what he had told me in February. And you're hearing all that, tariffs, because it's UBI, right? Tariff rebate checks are UBI. But so what if it's a scenario where maybe the stock market won't reflect a crash, but you're seeing like all the job cuts right now. Like people are getting laid off left and right.
The economy is terrible.
It's terrible.
I follow Ed Dowd and others. It's such a hollowed out economy. And when you have sycophants and cheerleaders like the cabinet meeting yesterday was like something out of North freaking Korea.
The Pentagon, you mean? Is that the Pentagon
briefing?
No,
the whole cabinet meeting.
I didn't see that.
Each person has 10 minutes to say, under the glorious leadership of dear leader, the greatest president ever, our department can report that things are looking better. It's rainbows and unicorns under the glorious leadership of dear leader Trump. It was sickening. People that are like, I've already bailed out of my health. So my family, my kids, no health insurance, right? Can't pay that. Am I going to keep the heat on in the house or have to keep hiding my pickup truck because it's going to be repossessed? All right. These people are not watching Trump and all his sycophants saying the economy's great. Stop listening to the Democrats about that affordability myth.
What about the buy now, pay later?
Listen to Alan Karp. Palantir is leading the way.
What about the buy now, pay later? People are doing that for Grubhub. They're ordering food and doing buy now, pay later. Have you seen that?
Yeah, let's have a 15-year note for cars and a 50-year note for houses. That's just slavery. You're going to be paying. I've seen different spins put on the Black Friday selling. It's like, well, year over year, it was greater than last year. Yeah, inflation adjusted, it wasn't, and it's all on a credit card. We have a very hollowed out economy right now. If we go into the midterms the way it is or worse, and then assuming we don't have a Black Hawk Down in Venezuela, a Black Black Hawk Down, we are going to get hosed in the midterms because MAGA Trump America won't come out. The guy that just got his pickup truck foreclosed, or repossessed, and now he can't even work, he's going to be listening to those Trump press conferences. Don't listen to those Democrats talking about affordability. Our economy's great. You just got to have faith. I mean, it is not great. And eventually, we talk about Venezuela, Ukraine, Russia, Iran, all of these things. AI, what is the future of jobs for people coming out when the jobs are being taken over by AI? All of that. Are towns and municipalities being vampired by these bond issues where the town owes more money than they can ever pay, which is also going on in Europe, Germany, England, where the towns owe much. Every little town, every county is buried under debt. When this whole thing pops, it's going to be really horrible. And I listened to all the experts. I listened to experts on all sides, and they all seem to agree, yes, we're at the end of a debt cycle. The currency, we're going to have a crash. But what will take its place? Will it be a stable coin system? Will it be a CBDC? Will we all get a new kind of an EBT card or call it a universal basic income card, whatever? And they're going to put 10,000 stable coins on it, and they're going to order Walmart to honor it and give you clothes and food. I'm thinking, how does that happen? When in history has that ever happened? We're on the train heading for the canyon. We know the bridge isn't there. And the engineers just saying, don't worry, folks, stay on the train. By the time we get there, they've got a new plan. It's just going to be like the tracks are going to come out. It's going to be like Indiana Jones. It's a canyon. You can't see the bridge, but it's there. You just, throw some sand on it. It'll be there. Throw the magic sand and you'll get across the chasm. I'm not seeing it. When has it ever happened in history? We're going to have one collapse and then just miraculously a bridge will appear in front of us.
Like you're going from the off ramp?
I don't think so.
Off ramp and then just jump right on the next interstate? You're going to go, you're going to go from one highway, exit
it's
ramp?
Never happened even in societies that were much more stable.
I was just talking to a friend of mine about this, and I appreciate his optimism. I just don't feel it. He said, well, we might have some slower growth, 3 to 4% over the next, number of years. And I'm like, man, I just don't see it. Like, people are struggling. Now, in my own little world, the people that I know, yeah, they're not doing buy now, pay later for Grubhub. But I mean, I talk to people all the time. Like, I believe what they're saying and what they're reporting and what they're analyzing. Like, people, it's expensive to be alive right now.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you what. Nobody's buying these things. This is like total discretionary income. Oh, I got some extra money. I think I'll buy some books. Are you kidding me? People aren't even going to McDonald's. People are like stocking up on ramen noodles to feed their kids. We're in a crazy situation where the Republican Party and the loyal MAGA Trump base is like, put on your rose-colored glasses. All we got to do is have faith. Click your ruby slippers. We'll all be in Emerald City. It's not happening at the ground level. And that's why the Democrats, it's not that the Democrats are going to have some great policy that wins people over. It's that disillusioned Republicans that, would have crawled through broken glass to vote for Trump. They're not going to vote next time.
Well, not only that, here's the other thing that I've said, and this is the way in my own personal lens, but like perfect example in December right now, the media, the MAGA media, and I saw some of them in the Pentagon room, and some of those people I've had on, and I mean, I think they do great work, but are they objective? Not when I see people hanging out at Mar-a-Lago all the time. That's not objective. Like, to me, that's not objective. You're supposed to keep it. I was listening to a boxing writer that I follow on Substack, Dan Raphael, and he just got attacked by a fighter for some of his criticism. He goes, I've known this fighter for a long time. I know his family, but I've always, kept an arm's length with people that I'm reporting on because there's going to come a time where it's nothing personal, but I need to be objective. I could tell you right now, the MAGA media, they're not objective at all.
No, you just switch teams, and you're never going to be served by having sycophants that say, what do you mean the emperor has no clothes? So, I mean, look, I hope that we can get Maduro out and we find out that they were running all the Dominion voting machines, and finally Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, they are out with massive raids and they're arresting all of these Democrats, the lawfare judges and corrupt senators and congressmen. But I at this point, I feel like that's like believing in the Q thing.
Never going to happen.
Trust the plan.
What'd you think
One more month. Trust the plan.
What'd you think of the J6 pipe bomb suspect that got?
I haven't seen much of that. It seems to blow out of the water that whole gate theory that it's the lesbian FBI soccer chick, that had the bad leg from a soccer injury. It seems to blow that out of the water. But it makes sense that the Democrats didn't want to talk about a young 20s, at the time like 20 years old, lefty Antifa guy living with a rich, in a rich, nice, very nice upscale house. So I hope they can make the case and tie it straight to Antifa, and then tie the FBI's covering it up to the fact that the narrative was J6 was all terrible Trump, revolutionaries, and not a left-wing Antifa false flag op. I mean, I hope they can tie this guy to a greater plot, because I do agree that the J6 pipe bomb was the plan B, right? If our 250 undercover FBI agents and others can't sucker this crowd, firing rubber bullets and pepper spray at them, opening doors mysteriously, having undercover agents running through dressed in mega gear. Come on, Granny, it's all good. That was all FBI. If I'm hoping that they can tie this J6 pipe bomb to being the plan B. If they, if for whatever reason they just couldn't do the Fed insurrection in the Capitol, plan B was, 10 minutes before 11. Oh my God, they tried to kill Kamala Harris with pipe bombs. And, then it would be cameras on pipe bombs. We have to just hurry up and what do you validate the election results. We can't spend the next 4 hours debating. We got to just get her done. But they didn't need the pipe bombs because they did work out the Capitol invasion Fedsurrection. So the obviously fake dummy pipe bombs weren't needed. But if they can tie the fake pipe bomb planner, to the Democrat Party, it's like trust the plan, Matt. Any day now, Bondi, Patel, and Bongino, they're going to be there with the handcuffs.
It's a superhero movie. It's a superhero movie. It's a fourth quarter of a football game, and yeah, the Avengers will prevail.
No, I'm pretty not very hopeful will ever be any arrests.
I know we said we'd do an hour. I want to ask you one more thing because I'm just curious if you've been paying. Yeah, I don't even know if you're paying attention to this, but what do you think of Candace Owens and like her rise to her show's just exploded with everything?
I think she's totally lost her mind. It's so interesting. It's like it's the Greek myth, flying too close to the sun, or the what is it, the Heisenberg principle? You she's got her own orbital gravitational pull around her own self, where I think that all of the things spinning around her are like captured in her own ego's gravitational field. And so any concept that flies by her, I mean, I knew she lost her mind when she was positing that Charlie Kirk's assassin was in like a spider trap, like a trap door in the grass. And there was a couple shows where she was like sure that the assassin had like a little trap door in the grass and shot him from in front from a trap door, like a secret tunnel. I think she's out of her mind. I mean, she's got a lot of great. She's very, she's photogenic. She's very well spoken. I'm not sure if Macron's wife is a dude or not. If she's entertaining. But saying that TPUSA like was part of getting Charlie Kirk killed, I think it's a horrible slander. And I think she's lost her mind. I unsubscribed from her. I very rarely listen to her anyway. But just, scrolling past my subscriptions, I deleted her subscription. I think she's lost her mind.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I just look at that. I'm like, all right, she's a mother of 3 or 4, however many kids she has, at least 3, maybe 4. But even if all this was right, let's say it was all accurate, it's like, man, I mean, if.
But a person's ego, when they're successful, when the more clickbaity you get, the more money income is coming in. It's like it's a self-reinforcing behavior, a self-licking ice cream cone, right? A positive feedback loop. And you become the center of your little human solar system, where you now think that everything you see orbiting around you is something you can grab and use and put into a context, some kind of a conspiracy. I think that she's just become her own narcissistic, egomaniac little solo island, where everybody is that money is coming in. The people that are saying you're crazy, well, they're part of the enemy. They're Zionists or whatever. And the people that agree with me, they're smart. And some of the people that agree with me are telling me these secrets that I'm just going to put out as like someone in the know told me. And it's like, obviously, who? You got to back things up. I think she's FOS, and I don't feel sorry for her because she's like really hurting people at this point.
Where could
I
people?
mean, if she got sued, I wouldn't care.
Yeah, so it's interesting because she hasn't. Well, Macron filed a lawsuit, but Turning Point hasn't, which I find interesting.
They may get there,
Mm.
right? But we're in it's a new world, and this is a new world. So Candace Owen is like one example of this new world. Luigi Mangione is another example in this new world. You see how thrilled he was to be in court wearing nice clothes, the Mr. Big Eyebrows. He's like the cat that ate the parakeet. I mean, he is the happiest man in the world. In the internet era, he's a superstar. He's like Ted Bundy.
Fuentes.
Women want to have his baby.
Fuentes.
No,
Nick Fuentes. Oh, I
Luis,
mean, would you put him in that category though too?
Fuentes goes for all kind of crazy clickbait. I mean, he says things, and it's not a new observation. With one person, he'll like be pretty rational and 80%, in real world. He'll go on another. He'll be interviewed by somebody else and say something that's like a total slap at the last person he was with, or completely like you sounded normal and now you're like intentionally going off to cuckoo world. So I think like Candace Owens, you can have such an egomania and narcissism that you're subsumed by your own gravitational field. You begin to think that everything is rotating around you. You're not just one of many influencers. You are like the center. So he's like he'll be making fun of Jared Taylor. I mean, okay, I don't know if you saw that. Jared Taylor, great ally, great guy. Who the hell is Nicholas J. Or Nick Fuentes to be like mocking Jared Taylor, who's been in the trenches for like 40 years when he was alone, he was banned, he couldn't be on any deplatformed everywhere. And so Jared Taylor has a speech and Fuentes' approach is to mock it and then say, "Oh, I love you, Jared. Ha ha ha." Some of these people it sounds very boomer. It's like too big for their britches.
Yeah, Laura Loomer's
You
another
know?
one. Laura Loomer gets people all fired up on the
Oh,
internet.
well, Laura Loomer is a great conservative, but above all, she's a Zionist. I mean, if you had to, if they were the last two people on the life raft, it would be her and Mark Levin. They'd shoot everybody else,
Yeah.
right? No matter what, it's Israel. Laura Loomer's great, up and down the line, but don't talk about Israel. That's it. It's there are plenty of people like that. That even Dan Bongino, I listened to him on Bongino Report for years. He's like up and down the line. Cutesy time is over. We've got to no more easy days. We're going to go right after these people. But he always had that one exit, which was, but don't talk about Israel. Israel above everybody. I'm a total conservative, but Israel. And I think that's the heart of the whole Epstein thing. If they went full bore on releasing everything about Epstein, it would be clear it's a Mossad operation. It's a NSA CIA financial laundering thing at the top, but at the bottom, in the dirty cesspool part, it's a underage girl blackmail ring run by Mossad. And if that was to be fully exposed, that would absolutely blow up America's relationship to Israel. And Dan Bongino, he's not on board with that, in my opinion. So I'm just telling you where, I see things from my nowhere little unimportant vantage point.
Well, it's more important. Well, well, I asked you, and
No, but I mean,
your
that's how I
opinion.
see it.
Yeah,
I've met Laura Loomer, she's a nice lady, but boy, just don't talk about
yeah.
Israel. That's the third rail.
I'm gonna watch. Milo is on Tucker. It's 2.5 hour.
He's hard for me to take. A
That
guy
guy.
with giant black boyfriends for years. It's like no matter what you say, oh, now you're a Reformed Catholic Christian. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah,
hold off on that.
I don't know about all that, but his, I mean, because I wasn't following all this 10 years ago, but his stuff, he gets people so fired up on X. To me, it's hilarious.
He's witty. He's
He
very
gets these
witty,
young
but I mean,
girls just so
hey,
fired up.
he's another tortured soul who was pederasted as a young boy,
Yeah.
and that twists people all around. I saw a great Corbett report. Corbett report, like yesterday, day before, outstanding on the royal family. So Prince Charles, now King Charles, had like four or five, as when he was a little boy, four or five of the closest people to him were like big time pedophiles. Exposed later as so when he's like a 10-year-old, he's constantly around like what's his name? Savile and Lord Mountbatten, all of these guys that are pedos. So like the royal family and it's like okay, well, but maybe they never did anything pedophile around Prince, now King Charles. You know, they broke from their pattern. But that Corbett report on the all the pederasts and pedophiles around the royal family, unbelievable. And you know, Keir Starmer. I follow Paul Weston on X every day. P. Westoff, but Paul Weston, just look him up, British guy. Keir Starmer has like this unbelievable, it's almost like at a level of a Milo Yiannopoulos history with what they call over there rent boys. Like all of these, like, oh, another scandal where, you know, he's found in a car and the police are pulling him over and it's a DUI and he's with a 14-year-old boy. That's Keir Starmer, like for years. And you don't think that intelligence agencies or Islamic, whatever they use for the Muslim Brotherhood type of, you don't think they would blackmail him for that? They've got video of him, like, you know, with the little boys. You don't think they'd use that to say, dude, you are keeping that border open. The Muslims are coming in on the boats 1,000 a day, and when that stops, the videos are coming out. That's the world we live in. Yeah, Keir Starmer, the Rent Boys. Just look that, Google that. Keir Starmer, Rent Boys. He's got a thing for like the adolescent males. It's not a secret. So you think he's a free agent? You think he's making all these decisions just out of a sincere belief? How did he become the Prime Minister of England anyway? It's like, you know, how did Obama become a state senator, president? It's like, wow, you turn around and like we're in a new world.
I wonder, like a lot of these people, you know, Alex Karp and Peter Thiel and Sam Altman, are they all manufactured? I mean, Alex Karp looks like the mad scientist.
Oh,
He
he's
looks
like
like he
tripping on
looks like a
Adderall and
villain.
crack.
He looks like a villain out of a Marvel movie.
He's even crazier than Newsom. You know, Newsom's talking and he's like, this is while he's talking. I mean, what the hell? What drugs are these people on?
Where can people find him at?
On mostly on X. I usually post in the morning. When I'm like reading the news, I post what I retweet stuff. It's Matt_Bracken48. And my website is enemiesforeignanddomestic.com. And if anybody is still buying books, you can get these from me, and I'll sign them. I hate even throwing any business to Amazon because the Amazon I'm practically losing money sending books to Amazon now. It's insane. But I have all these novels, and you can do that. Great novels, and they won't. You know, when the internet crashes, they'll still work. They're also on Kindle and Audible on Amazon. But if you get them through me, and if you want to get some Christmas presents, the postage is so much a part of the cost of sending these books now. It's better if you buy multiple books. So I'll drop the price from $24. I mean, these are like 500-page books. They're not like little Kindle things. These are like 500-page novels. I'll drop the price from 24 a book to 20 a book if you get three or more, because it works out both ways, because the postage, you know, the postage slope goes way down with larger orders. Anyway, it's interesting times we live in. Pretty soon it's going to be another year, and every day with electricity and running water is a great day.
And for people that watch Matt on my show very regularly, he'll be on again with Matt Smith hopefully in the next week or two, and then we'll do our movie
That
one
would
at
be
the end of
great.
the year, and then we go
Yeah,
into 26.
I just posted a Substack about Matt Smith's book with Doug Casey and his son Maxim Smith. His book called The Preparation. So look for my Substack on that I just put out yesterday.
And for those that watch my show, I put everything up early for paid subscribers on Substack. So if you value what I'm doing, please consider becoming a paid subscriber. And then for those that watch on YouTube and Rumble, comment, share. I read all the comments. And Matt, I know it's not going to be that long before we chat again.
As long as there's an internet.
Well, hopefully for the rest of the year, so I can get that conversation with Matt Smith and then our
every
movie
day,
one.
every day with electricity is a good day.
Yeah. Mic drop.